Hi everyone, welcome today. For those of you who may not know us, we are the research branch of University of Idaho, mainly focused on energy efficiency of building, offering education, outreach, and technical support. Many of our projects is sponsored by Idaho Power Company, so I would like to thank them for supporting us with their generous support during the years. So I'll just take just 2 minutes to quickly go over some of the services we offer at IDL. We have an energy resource library, which includes tools for measuring building performance that you can borrow from us for free. Then we are running a Launch and Learn program, which you can read more details about it on our website and also on the LinkedIn. Another valuable service that we offer in addition to this lecture series is our technical design assistance. Yes, this slide. If your project requires less than $2,000 worth of our time, it's entirely free for you. If it's more, a large portion will still be covered by Idaho Power Company, and just a small portion will be paid by you. So this is something that you may take advantage of it. And also, I apologize. I'm having the flu, so my voice is coming and going the whole day today. So hopefully it doesn't happen during the few minutes. And also, Idaho Power Company have several incentives for builders and construction firms for new construction and also major renovations that you can take advantage of. If you have any questions or if you have any projects coming up, please reach out to us. My colleagues, Dr. Woods and Dylan, would be happy to help you. And now, I'm so excited to introduce our today's speaker, Jeffy Walton. He is an application specialist at McNeil Company that develops Rhino and Grasshopper and a lot of good tools. So I'm personally very excited to learn about Rhino and Revit working together. And from Jeffy, he's the best in this field. And I think no one better than he can teach us that. So without further ado, I'm turning things over to him. Jeffy, you have the floor. Please take it away.
Okay, thank you. I keep trying to turn on the camera, but it keeps turning off. So it's not me turning it off, but I was going to turn it off while I'm doing the presentation anyways, but great to meet everybody. I'm Jeffy, application specialist with McNeil. I guess big thanks to Idaho Power for having me and for Naz for the invitation. So yeah, the objectives here is really just to kind of get you familiarized with getting started in Rhino, what Grasshopper is, and how that relates to Rhino.Inside.Revit. This isn't, it's not a sales pitch. It's just to give you as much information as possible and to answer any questions you might have. So feel free as we go through to, I guess, put questions in the chat, and then and I'll try to answer them the best we can as we kind of go forward.
Hey, Jeffy,
Jeffy.
Can you share your screen? I don't think we're seeing you.
Okay, yeah, I haven't shared anything yet, so.
Oh, okay. Just want to make sure. Sorry.
No problem.
There we go.
All right, so yeah, like I said, it's not a sales pitch, but I'm going to give you a brief history of Rhino, how to get it, how to download it, all that part, and then we'll get to the fun stuff. So on our Rhino history on our wiki page, Rhino started back in Seattle in 1992, kind of as a AutoCAD plugin developer. This eventually morphed into what we know now as Rhino. It's a pretty small company as we have it. We're not Autodesk. We don't have billions of dollars in yearly revenue, or the actual U.S. employees probably a little over 100. Not a huge company. We actually have offices around the world, in Barcelona, and some support offices in Asia, and all over the world. So as we kind of progressed, I think big ones here are 2008, when Grasshopper was added to Rhino, as well as 2012, Rhino 5, and we got Rhino 5 for Mac released in 2015, and kind of Rhino.Inside.Revit made the list in 2020. So that's kind of where we're at now. To get started in Rhino, you simply go to our download page. If you don't have a license, you can click the one-time evaluation. So that applies to each release version. So we're on Rhino 8 right now. So that's the version you can get for 90 days. It's fully functioning. So each release, you'd be able to get another 90-day trial. So if you click on the evaluation link, you're gonna have to have a Rhino account. The reason we do this now is to comply with the EU privacy laws. So this opts you in. So it'll show you your license key here, and then you could download Rhino. So that's just getting started, just to play around for 90 days. The same applies to Mac. The same license key, you can use Mac or Windows with the license key, but they are completely different installers, obviously. So you can download either here. If you have purchased a license, which there is a students and faculty license with upgrades cost here. If you do have an actual license, you can get legacy keys to older versions, because throughout the years, there's been amazing plugins developed for Rhino that some of them don't work in Rhino 8. So some people still have workflows for Rhino 7. So that's, especially if you're doing a lot of simulations, there's a couple great plugins that still work great in Rhino 7 that they haven't completed the upgrade, or the developers aren't developing anymore. So it's kind of an important thing to know. Once you get your license, move this window over here in the support tab. There's a couple ways to license it. You can either put it on a single computer, or you could put it on your what we call a cloud zoo, which is essentially your Rhino account. So one of the aspects of an educational license, let's see, is that it's not a shareable license. If you do have a commercial license, you can share it with other people. So that's important to know. The educational license is for a single user only. We put it as low as possible, so that's why they do that. So you can't share it. So the Rhino Zoo is essentially your Rhino account, where you go to manage your licenses. And then you click on your name, and then you could add your license there. When entering in Rhino, it's going to ask for your email. You'll log in, and then effectively you can use your license on any number of computers, but only on one computer at a time. So if you had a Mac or Windows, or you're working at in a lab and then you want to go home, that's how you do that. So it's recommended to kind of use that Cloud Zoo option rather than lock it to a single machine. Another important aspect is kind of the system requirements. You want to make sure that you have a Intel or AMD processor, not an ARM. An ARM processor is the like this new, you'll see it if you go to Best Buy, they put all the new computers right in the front, which happen to be ARM processors. Those are the Snapdragon. So those are not a supported processor. You'll find most CAD programs are not going to support those. They work great on the internet, but they're not great for processing graphics. So the biggest factor in using a computer with Rhino is kind of the video card. It's recommended about 4 GB per monitor. Ideally, you can get by with 4 GB. You can get by with 2 GB, but it is a graphics intensive program. So you're definitely going to want to have a pretty decent machine. Any gaming computer is going to work great. So I guess the only other thing in general is like who uses Rhino. It's about everybody. Who doesn't use Rhino is probably a much easier list to come up with, but I can't really think of anybody. Yeah, you have anywhere from footwear design, jewelry, architecture, people doing renderings, hobbyists, makers doing like 3D printing, all of that. It's surprising how many actual products are designed with Rhino, like Apple, car companies. All these people have a number of Rhino licenses and use Rhino to who knows what, but it's amazing what people come up with. All right. So let's get right into any questions here so far. No, just the basics. All right. So now we're getting into Rhino with our default setup. Need to move this. So I guess the biggest thing, I'll try to spend more time in Grasshopper, but yeah, kind of once again, I just want to cover the basics of the Rhino interface. Over here we have our panels, so you can show different kind of tool sets over here. And one of the default ones is the help panel. So you could search this, but also when you are starting a command, it's going to pull up that help page right there, and you could see what some of the options mean up here that are coming up in the command line. It'll give you more details and also some related commands if need be. One of the really like kind of drawing in Rhino is pretty fun. So we have this gumball. Let's see. So when you select your object, the gumball has a few options. Here's what all the little parts and pieces of the widget mean. So like if I wanted to extrude this object, I click here and go there, and it talks about the drag mode. I'll get back to gumball. Yeah, so it's clicking and so extrude, cut, scale, rotations, and moving the origin. So if I wanted to move this over here, so I could drag. It also has a feature down. The gumball can be turned off kind of down here. And if you right click, it has some additional features and settings that you can mess with. Align to object is a really good one, but also snappy dragging. So when you're it'll snap to other objects that that are in your scene. So that's usually how people use it, but there's a number of ways. You can also kind of drag the faces. What I did there was actually a sub-select. Select objects. So you could do a control, or if you're in a Mac, command shift click. So I hold control shift, and that'll allow me to select just the face. Or if I get on the edge, I could select the edge of that, or I could select a point, for instance. So that control shift and sub select is a really important one as well. Couple more just little things here. Like I said, it's kind of fun to draw in Rhino. They have this auto plane option that we've now added down here. So if I did sub select and made it puts the plane right onto our surface. And if I was going to, I could put our geometry right here. In Rhino 8, let's see, new in Rhino 8, there's a great push-pull command. So I could select here and quickly push or pull. So if I go back here, makes a hole. Another kind of aspect of the gumball. Let's see if I get to this. There we go. If I select that curve, and that, remember there was a cut one, so you can quickly cut right here. So you can see how it does make drawing in Rhino kind of fun. Let's see. A big part of getting is kind of understanding where all the settings are. If I go to File, Properties, this kind of gives you the document properties where you can get in your options for various keyboard shortcuts, aliases. You could chain commands together with these kind of simple scripts. There's some great help on that as well. Your view display modes. So display modes control what you're seeing here. As far as, so if I go into my window, I can be in a wireframe, ghosted, where I can kind of see through the objects. Those are all available for editing or copying here in the settings. So if you wanted to make a new version of a particular display mode, you could copy that display mode, change how those objects are being seen, as like if they want to use the object color, or if you want ISO surfaces. It's also worthy to note that over here in this in our kind of panel area, you could toggle aspects of the view individually as well. So if I don't want to see the ISO curves, or I could turn off all my surface edges. So this is helpful in various workflows where you have particular views that you want to work with. Right. So let's get going in Grasshopper. I'll get rid of that. So to start Grasshopper, you can either click on this button here to launch Grasshopper, or you could type in the word Grasshopper. So Grasshopper runs in this kind of non-dockable window. So it does take a little bit getting used to kind of working with this floating window. You can put it on another screen or everything or anything, but I recommend just kind of personally, I like to just kind of get used to it in the on the same screen. The help resources. So there's a couple tutorial files on here that kind of helpful to kind of get started with some math functions, but they're not too in depth. The Grasshopper support will take you to our forum, which is a great place to be. If you want to learn Grasshopper, you can try to help people answer questions, or if you have questions yourself, you can see what the other people have said about your issue. The Learn Grasshopper, that goes to our Learn page with Grasshopper, which is sortable. So one of the ones I always recommend to people, and we'll talk about this a little bit, is the David Rutten's the developer of Grasshopper. He did these masterclass series working with data trees. So those are highly recommended to anybody just getting started in Rhino. I'll do a brief data tree example, but this is going to be much more in depth. You do have to be a little wary of getting too deep into some of these rabbit holes that aren't necessarily in your wheelhouse of what you're trying to learn. You might not need to know how to make these mathematical organic shapes and all that, but there's also really good just fundamental more pragmatic uses of Grasshopper as well. The foundations manual here by this Mode Lab is amazing. This will kind of get you through various aspects of some of the more kind of parametric design aspects. This one, yeah, some short videos. So yeah, really good learning materials. This one, this online reference is pretty amazing. So one of the issues a lot of people have when they get going in Grasshopper is that there's just so many components, right? And especially when you start adding in plugins, there could be thousands of buttons. And you kind of want to understand what they do, and it's it's a little overwhelming at first, but this site kind of will help a lot kind of see what various plugins and various tabs have for the Grasshopper components. So you can click on any of these, for example. I don't think, yeah, so those are pretty basic. We go to, let's see. So data structures, yeah, so they tell you the inputs, kind of what the outputs and their description and type, like the data type that they're expecting. So the Grasshopper docs is really, really fun to kind of browse through. Once again, that's available in this Learn Grasshopper link right here. So getting around this interface a little bit, a couple of key points. So just double clicked and search for a box. So typically how you want to find your components. Like I said, I just typed in box. It gives me everything with a box in it. So that's probably going to be one of the faster ways to find your component if you don't know exactly where you're going. So when you have an object in Grasshopper, it's a virtual object, and we can turn on it. So it's really just a preview. So these buttons right here control control the preview. So right here, I don't draw anything, so nothing's shown in our document. It can be a wireframe preview, a shaded preview. This is a little more fancier one where you're excluding a region on your Grasshopper canvas. This one's really nice when you're working in a large definition. So if I had multiple boxes for some reason, it's only going to show you the it's only going to show you the one that you're selected. So you can kind of follow the train of whatever the definition is doing. So that's a really good one. Note that the preview is drawing graphics in Rhino. So if you have a really, really large project, generally you'll want to learn how to work with preview off, because then it's drawing objects takes a few seconds. So it's if your definitions are getting a little sticky, that's one way to save a little bit of time. Another important one that you should know is on the display pull down, you could choose how you're seeing these inputs and outputs. So the X and Y and box and all that. You can draw like shortened names. So once you get used to like everything that you're working with, and you don't really need to know the inputs. You know what they mean. You don't need to have these full names drawn. But when you're just getting started, it's really nice to know what these mean. If you hover over each one, it's going to tell you what it's looking for. So this is looking for an integer for the loft type of 0, 1, 2, 3, or 5 for the different settings. I can also right click and set that right here as well. So the wire display, draw the fancy wires. You want fancy wires. Let's see, for example, so right now we have a thin wire, which is one item. So now if I had 10 items, now we get this thicker wire. We right click and we can graft. And so now that's showing we have a more complex data tree going on with the dashed. So that's where the display fancy wires is going to give you information about what's passing through these. I've always worked with draw icons on, but if you want the actual name of the objects or the components, so this is center box. So I could type in center box and get my center box. So it is helpful getting the name. You're like, well, I could see this center box over the top. That's actually a plugin called Sunglasses that is displaying those. So that's not a default part of Rhino with the name of the component over the top, but especially like doing a little instructional like this, it's super helpful. Here's your preview settings again. One thing to note is the units. Get back to icons. Grasshopper works in whatever unit your Rhino file is in. So if I type in units, I'm working in decimal feet, which is, I work a lot in Rhino.Inside.Revit. The Revit files are in decimal feet, so that's where I got my default file when I open up as a decimal foot file. So all these entries, this is 10 decimal feet, and that applies to the grid and everything. So you'll notice here, I go make this wireframe. It's showing our base plane. So I could extract that parameter. That display is available to change. So when you change units, sometimes a 2-foot preview plane is a little much, and you'd want to turn that down to 1, for instance. So you could have a same thing with the points and all that. These individual components also have some ability to turn off. So if we can right click here, we can disable the preview here where it grays out the grasshopper, and you could turn it back on. You could also disable the completely, which removes it from it doesn't get solved. And the solution, so you can disable the solver right here. We're still getting previews, but if I made a change, for instance, let's change that. You'll see we have orange wires now. That means no information is going through here because the solver is locked, so it's not running. So that's good to know if like you have a large definition, or if the definition is set up that's going to run right when you open up Grasshopper. You can start with your solver locked. So I could go new, I could lock my solver and then switch, and it's not gonna be able to run that that definition. It ran it the first time. So we covered the wires, we covered all that. So let's kind of get into what Grasshopper is. So it's essential. I mean, it's all built on Rhino, so it's Rhino Common, and then most of these correspond directly to commands in Rhino. So there is like a box, rectangle, or like each one of these kind of corresponds. Maybe a good example would be like the orient command, orient 3 points. So if I had plane here, so in Rhino, if I want to orient 3 points, I'd select this. Select object to orient. Enter. So it's asking for reference points, and then I could place that oriented to 3 other reference points. So if you go in here and do an orient component, it's asking for geometry, a source plane, and a target plane. So that plane is going to be your XY coordinate, and that effectively scripts the orient 3-point component. So you could put in multiple geometries with multiple sources and multiple targets and do all that at once. So Grasshopper in itself is just kind of, it's a virtual geometry. It doesn't exist in the Rhino document. So the idea here is that you could chain things together. So if I deconstructed my BREP, boundary representation, this gives me a list of all the edges, all the faces, and all the vertices. And like, so this still exists. I could make it a different size. Right here. And that affects these ones down the road. So if I wanted to, is planar. So I wanted to get the plane of each one of these faces and then make another rectangle. Put a rectangle each plane. Connect the right one. And do a box rectangle. You can see I'm chaining all these together. Nothing actually exists in Rhino. I turn off my preview, but if as I make changes, it's gonna flow down this path. So this gets us to like getting objects into Rhino. So they don't exist until you bake them. So once I bake, right clicked and went bake, it's asking me which layer I want to put everything on. And now we have, I guess I put it on the red layer, so that wasn't very helpful. So now we have objects that exist in Rhino. So in Rhino 8, we've added some new components because Rhino essentially started out just really basic, the geometry, a lot of doing math operations, working on stuff like that. It wasn't really focused in on some of the other aspects of Rhino, such as annotations, dimensions, and doing kind of data workflows that go back and forth. So there were some plugins made that did it, but in Rhino 8, we started kind of adding in more of these Rhino, like more Rhino basic things like annotations, blocks, eventually render stuff, having access to viewports and everything like that. So getting rid of this. So with this, you can actually do a content cache component that will push these objects into Rhino. And if I make a change, it doesn't do anything because I'd have to push to replace those objects. The solution to that, so what I did here is it's called a zoom UI. So when I zoomed in, there's some extra little inputs and outputs that you can get. One thing you can do is right click and show all. There's also shortcuts of Control or Shift double click will remove to get to these, to show all the inputs and outputs available. But here we have an action input. So now if I do a Boolean toggle to true, now when I can do kind of a live update of actual Rhino geometry. Note that what is controlling what, so if I move this back, it's gonna it's gonna overwrite my move. So it's definitely something to be aware of. So what the result here is this new Grasshopper object called a model object. If I construct a point, here, and I'm just doing a double slash to get the panel. Let's just shortcut the panel. I think you can do quotations as well. Pull up this quick panel. It's just kind of giving you a point. If I do make that a model object, then it's no longer an actual point. It's going to be a model point. The difference is this model point is now holding more of this metadata information, such as layer, name, visibility, that we can then interact with our content cache and push pull. If we had a point or several points in Rhino, and we want point, select multiple points. This isn't considered a model object yet. You'd have to turn it into one here, to a model point. It's still considered like a reference point. Note with these that you can actually interact with them here as well. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to, we got about 15 minutes, so we still got to get to the Rhino inside Revit, which is a whole nother ball of wax to go through. So I'll try to speed this up. So this interaction with a model object here, it gives you access to the visibility, display, which are all properties of Rhino. So if I wanted to set the drafting attributes or display attributes, or visibility attributes of our point. So we're gonna go ahead and do this content cache, get our point into Rhino right here. Now, if we wanted to, I'm using Alt to copy. If we wanted to hide that in Rhino, I could push here. So obviously that could be, once again, be controlled by Grasshopper or here. So display, drafting. So these are all properties that you'll find over in the properties dialog. Display, color, line type scale, items like that. Another another aspect, is important is the layer. So if a layer isn't given, it's going to create this Grasshopper layer and make a layer called points and just throw them on there for you. To get objects from Rhino, you can query model objects right here. And this is going to give you a list of model objects in the Rhino document. Once again, this is kind of a visibility filter. So if we had things that were hidden for some reason. Let's see if I do a Control H and turns that to false, it's not going to get the hidden objects. So that's how you reference your objects. And then this is how you push them in the Rhino. I guess the one thing I want to do before moving on to Rhino.Inside.Revit, because I promised it earlier, is just a small data tree example. So if I construct a point, that, help if I have my preview on, turn all this off, get rid of these. So I just made these 10 points on our X axis. And then if I had another 10, let's put this up so we could see it. To connect these with a line. Right now we have if I hover over here, it says a list of 10 items. I can also do param viewer, which will kind of give the tree information. If I graph this, then I have 10 lists of 10 items. So when you're working in Rhino with more complex data trees, it's really, really important to understand this, that you're always looking for a 1-to-1 ratio of or matching of your data trees. So since I put in a list of 10 and a list of 10, it's going to get the first item in this list, the first item of that list, and make a line. If if this varied, you could see it's going to go to the last item on the list. So it's not matching, so it's just going to go to the last one. Where this can be problematic is if you have a list that is grafted, so you have your 10 lists of one item. Now it's going to take each point against each one of these points and create 10 lines for each one. So quickly we had 100 objects where I only wanted 10. So if you had 1,000 of something and then another several, like 50 of another, and then you put those in grafted, you could quickly see how that is going to get you in trouble, because you're going to start making millions of objects or hundreds of thousands. So that's a small data tree. Like I said, I recommend David Rutten's data tree masterclass. They're short, like 5-minute videos, I think 3 or 4 of them. So let's start Revit. We got 9 minutes. So to get plugins in the Rhino, we have a package manager where you could search for plugins. Rhino.Inside.Revit. These are all like third-party plugins that people have done, so you can install a plugin there. The Rhino.Inside.Revit plugin is going to be available on our website, Rhino.Inside.Revit. You could download the plugin here, and then it can use either 7 or 8. This is going to be it's going to install on anything from Revit 18 up to 25. Rhino 8 is required to run in Revit 2025 because of changes. So here's our kind of our getting started page. It'll kind of walk you through this installation, as well as our as our guides. You'll learn more about Revit than you ever wanted to know. This is kind of how Revit works behind the scenes, because we're actually using Grasshopper to use the Revit API. So when you initially install, you'll have Revit closed. You'll install Rhino inside Revit. Then when you open it up, if you have multiple versions of Rhino installed, it's going to ask which one you want to use. So in this case, I'm going to use the Rhino 8. So back on our website, it'll go through the various settings and like how all our components are color coded. So the blue are parameters. We have query components, analyze components, as well as construct and create are the cyan colors. More information on various how Rhino inside Revit can interact with walls, curtain wall systems, and stuff like that. Tons of information here. Probably maybe should have picked a smaller project to open up since we're running low on time, but I think we'll make it. A big part of this is the Discover page, where you can kind of get various tutorials, as well as our forum, where that's me right here, where if you have questions, some people are posting new tutorial videos, are really good. So highly recommended. So when you open up Rhino inside Revit, it's going to put this tab here. A couple of things to know in the about. This will give you your kind of system information, but also your options, where you can set to start Rhino on startup and isolate settings. So if you wanted to always open up in meters or feet and inches, that's where you do that. This is also where you can subscribe to the stable release, which is a monthly, the release candidate, which is a weekly, and then the daily builds, which is daily. And you could download them right here. And if there's an update, you'll get this little orange circle. So mine started up right away. So I can go right into Grasshopper. So not only do we have our Revit windows, now we have our Rhino windows and our Grasshopper windows all on top of each other. So yeah, there is a lot of maneuvering on a single screen, and multiple monitors works pretty good, but you definitely got to get used to the workflows. We only have a few minutes, so quickly gonna go through. So all those cyan components are the create components. Where you can add ceilings. Purple is deconstruct. But like, for instance, on this one, the most basic object is a graphical element. So if I wanted to just right click and set a graphical element, I could go in here. It could be a linked element. It could be whatever. And you'll see it here. I could right click and bake that. You could do that with the content cache as well. That comes as a block, and it'll have the if there was materials on there, it would show the materials as well. But that's the most basic component. But you can use all of Revit's filtering and everything. So if I was going to get all the
Hey, Joffy,
yeah,
we got a couple questions.
Okay,
I
let's
know
do it.
we're on
I know we got three minutes left, so
I think
yeah.
this one's relevant. Is how well does it play with the analytical or energy analytical and daylighting aspects of Revit?
We have a feature request to add in components. We don't have any native components available in the analytical. There are some examples of people doing scripted versions because I never even got into the scripting.
Okay.
You can, because you have access to the Revit API through here, so you can like kind of script your own components or use other people's components that have been scripted for the analytical. Yeah, so that's what we have there now. So.
Okay.
We have some more questions, or
If you like to go over them, we can, or you can try to wrap it up. What you were doing.
yeah, I mean, I was just gonna, I mean, one little thing, I was gonna query the category, like try to get all the walls, for instance. So these are all just like our other components. You can kind of right click and change things. But if I wanted to get all the walls in the project, I would use a Revit category filter. Get that, and then query elements, which will take that filter and pull in all the walls. Help if I had the preview on. And I need a graphical element component to show those. Boom. So there we have all our walls. And then you could do that with linked as well. So that's a quick and dirty way to get all the walls in a project in the Rhino.
So it seems like this is a more sophisticated or granular way of importing geometry into from one modeling program to another rather than GPXLM.
Yep, I'm not familiar with GPXLM, but yes, yeah, you have total control. I mean, you could push or pull information to and from Rhino. So if I was going to make an object here, box, oh, let's get there. I know we're running out of time. So if I wanted to get into Rhino or into Revit, sorry. Box. I think we hit our time limit, right?
That's all right.
All right. So quickly I could add a direct shape. Not that one. Add a direct shape. Geometry. That's gonna throw a box in a Revit. So now we have a huge box that you could actually modify its parameters. So yeah, it's like information is going to go back and forth from Rhino to Revit this way. So it does give you very, very a lot of control.
How well does it play with cloud models or linked models?
Well, yeah, there's a number of linked models in here.
Oh,
So yeah, linked models, you have access to the geometry as well. So if I wanted to get all the walls in this structural model, I could access that here without opening up that structural model. Once again, the Zoom UI has a document input and the filter has a document input. So now, because it's a separate category in the link document. So if we went back to our preview, it would be these structural walls. Here's the ones from the site, for instance. yes,
Yeah.
fully capable of working with the lead documents.
You guys got any questions? Okay, I think that's all the questions we have.
All right.
Thank you very much. That was very informative.
Yeah, that was the
Learned a lot.
goal. So the idea, to summarize, yeah, it was like I wanted to give you at least a brief overview. So if you first time user, you now know how to get your license. You know a little bit about Rhino, a little bit about Grasshopper, then a little bit about getting going into Rhino inside Revit, and how to get more help, either through our website, primarily, or the forum. So yeah, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to just either message us or post to the forum.
Okay, and I think someone requested permission to record. We record all the lectures and we post them on our YouTube channel. So you can just look us up on there. UIIDL is our YouTube channel. You can see all the past episodes as well. So thank you very much, Joffrey. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.